Hello everyone, I am back with more Destash videos, and I have about 17 to 20 Destash lots put together. I'm going to have to break this into several different videos, probably over the next week or so, I would guess. So I'll probably do about 3 or 4 per video. So the first set of Destash lots I'm going to do, I'll do probably 3 in this video, depending on how long it takes. But let's go ahead and get started so you can see what you will be getting. And in this lot, this will be lot number 1. Here's some ribbons. And a spool of vintage, I'm not sure if this is called, as I was saying, I'm not sure if this is considered ribbon. I guess it is, but it's vintage, and there's quite a bit on there. I tried to do somewhat of a curated collection. This box I think has primarily greens and browns and colors that coordinate with that, but that's not to say that you won't get other colors included. So we have some, I think this is seam binding or hem facing. So that is a brown color. You will get this green ribbon here, and it is vintage. A lot of these items are vintage. They would be good for any type of crafting though. Junk journals, scrapbooking, really any type of craft projects that you work with. And this ribbon is just gorgeous. It's, what is it called? Velvet. And when I found it, I was excited and couldn't wait to use it, but I have not had a chance to use it. So that's one of the reasons I'm getting rid of a lot of my craft supplies, because I just don't have the time to use some of the supplies that I purchased for my own personal use. I do make baby books, and I use a lot of crafting supplies, but some of these supplies I just have not had a use for, or it's not in the colors that normally are requested by my customers. So as I said, I believe most of the ribbon in this box is going to be browns and greens. There's a brand new package of seam binding, and it's vintage. And here are some repair tags. They are vintage. So you'll get 1, 2, 3, 5 of those. And a lot of the stuff I purchased because I wanted to make junk journals for myself. And as I said, I just don't have time. Here is a vintage statement business blanks, whatever that means. But here's what it looks like. And I found these, I believe, at a yard sale. And I thought they were just really cool to use in junk journals. But of course, you can use them for any purpose. And there's quite a few left in here. So you'll get that. I am throwing in a vintage book if you do junk journals. So here's what the cover looks like, and then it does have the dust jacket on it. I'm trying to see the year. It is a vintage book. I'm just not sure. 1947. So you will get that book. And this is, I'm not sure what this is. Oh, a transfer pattern. So whatever is in there, you transfer. But you could also use this packaging here for a craft project or a junk journal. So So some more seam binding. Here is a baggie full of doilies. Some of them may be vintage, I'm not sure, but there's a mixture of different doilies in that bag. Here's some gift wrap, and this is vintage. It has not been opened, so it's really pretty. I think this might be the last of my vintage gift wrap. I might have one more package of this that I do have in a different Destash slot. Here's some of those This Book Belongs To stickers. So I'm throwing those in. Here is, I guess it's a notebook, Stone Mountain Park. I guess it's in Maryland. I don't know. But anyway, you could definitely use this has like an embossed image on it, so you could definitely use that in a junk journal. But then we have some notebook paper in here. Oh, and it has different images, so that's kind of neat. And I do believe this is vintage. Okay, and I found some of that old type of ruled paper. I think we used it in kindergarten. When I say we, I just mean people in general. So it has, I don't know if it's showing up, but you could see it has a very nice vintage look to it. So you'll get a pack of that. I haven't done these videos in a long time, so I feel like I'm moving in slow motion here. So let me just kind of pick up the pace, because I do want to get through 2 other Destash shots if the video is not too long. Here's another new package of the seam binding and more ribbon and lace. Here's some more. I don't know if this is seam binding or hem facing, but there you go with that. Here's some unopened vintage seam binding, and it's lace. More seam binding and more seam binding. And this is, as I said, the majority of these supplies are vintage. Not to say that some of them are not vintage. Some of them might be a little newer, but this is hem tape. And then we have some lace, some more lace. Okay, this is a hanky, and I just thought that was really pretty. So these are cute little cards I found at my local thrift store, so I'm throwing those in, and I believe there's 4 different images. Here is some ephemera, just a yellow sheet of vintage paper. And then I found this in a frame, a vintage frame that I purchased at a thrift store, and I thought I would just throw it in because I thought this picture, this is a real picture, and I thought, look at that bird. And it's called Mad Bluebird. And here's the information about the photographer that took this picture. So I thought I would throw that in. I figured somebody could use it in a junk journal or a craft project. Here's some more seam binding and some lace seam binding. Then we have a package of stationery that has not been opened. I believe this is vintage, but I'm not sure. It's probably 90s, 1990s. Then we have some more ribbon, and then we have a couple cute little marble looking bags. And then this I wanted to share with everyone. It is an old tobacco bag, and I just thought it was so cool. So I wanted to make sure that everyone got at least one of those. So this is going to be lot 1. Let's move on to lot 2. See if I can get through this one a little bit faster. Okay, so this one is going to have pinks in it. So here we go with some vintage lace. And it's a little stiff. It's not soft, but there's quite a bit on there. And this is some vintage flocked ribbon, so it's like velvet. And here's some more vintage cloth ribbon. This lot will also have a book. And that is what the dust cover looks like. It is a vintage book. Here's what the cover looks like. And then let me see if I can find a date really quickly. This is going to be a 1953 book, perfect for a junk journal. Alright, so then we also have more we're going to put with something else. I thought it was pink and it's peach. So here we go with some pink seam binding, vintage, unopened. Here we have some half pearls. These would be great for flower centers. That's what I've used them for. So, and those are vintage. Here's some trim. It's really pretty. I included a package of those cards in this lot as well. Here's some more lace, and there's still quite a bit left on there. This looks to be vintage. Yes, that is vintage. We have a package of doilies. These are from Big Lots, so they're not brand new, but I don't think they're recent. But anyway, that is an unopened package of doilies. We have some purple buttons, some purple seam binding. Here is an assortment of pink seam binding and hem facing, I think it's called. Alright, we have some gorgeous vintage wrapping paper. It has not been opened. Here is a really pretty handkerchief, and that is vintage as well. Here is, I believe this is vintage. It has some kind of discoloration on the inside, it looks like, or you can just see kind of, it has a little bit of age going on, but I thought that was really pretty, and it has a very nice texture to it. So I thought that would look really good in a junk journal. And you will also get a package of this, I guess it's stationery, but it looks like this. There's a glare because it's still in the packaging. So you can kind of see the theme. Here is, I guess, kind of Victorian or shabby. You will get a few cloth doilies or lace doilies. Cotton, they're 100% cotton, so whatever you want to call those. You will get a couple of vintage, I believe they're around 1940s or 50s, greeting cards. And here is a package of bias tape, vintage, unopened, 12 cents. Look at that. Those are not 12 cents these days. That is unbelievable. So then we have a few vintage keys. And that is it for lot number 2. So the third lot is going to include a box of vintage envelopes. And I may take these out of the box in order to get them to fit into the priority envelope, depending on once I get everything packaged up. So I just want to let you know that you may not receive the box. It just depends, unless you absolutely want it. And then there's several of the envelopes left in there. All right, so with this lot, you will also get this book. I did paint some sections. I wanted to use it for something, and I started painting it to see if it would work. And then I started, I think I just went to a different book because this one wasn't as thick as what I wanted. But I thought, I know some people love the images in these books. They have some great images. So I figured, you know, somebody probably wouldn't use this for the cover. So I'm including that. Then we have some vintage ribbon. Some more vintage ribbon. And these are peach. I think I tried to include peach colors. This is peach, and it is seam binding. Or it's actually apricot, but you know, it's in the same family. So then we have, I believe this is a vintage lace curtain. So I actually have several of these, so I wanted to get rid of some of them. And then we have some vintage cards. And there's still quite a few left in here. I think almost all of them are left. I did share them in other Destash lots, but I believe the majority are still in there. Here's some vintage cards still on the tag. We have some random seam binding, vintage seam binding, bias tape, hem binding, whatever you call it, more seam binding. And I think this kind, I could be wrong, is a good type that you can dye, hand dye, different colors. Here's some more vintage buttons on the card, more seam binding or hem facing. I'm not sure what the difference is, but anyway, another vintage button. This is Color Fast, some type of braid, and it is vintage. And more of the seam binding. We have some vintage buttons, more vintage buttons. As you can see that this particular Destash lot has peaches, whites. There's some seam binding. More seam binding. More vintage buttons. And then we have some maxi piping in oyster, unopened. Okay, so what else do we have here? There is a piece of ribbon or something. Here's one of the vintage repair tags. Some vintage rickrack. Here we have some doilies in different styles and sizes. So there's quite a few of those. Here's some adorable doilies with angels on them. I included a couple of the little marble-looking sacks in there. Here are a few old wedding photos. And this lot will also get a package of that paper. Oh wow, we're still going. I thought we were almost done. Okay, so more of the seam binding. Some ribbon. some more lace, seam binding, hem binding, just all sorts. Oh, here are the other. I thought I put a couple of the vintage repair tags in here, so you'll get that. Here's some cute heart trim. More vintage. This says seam tape, unopened. More of the maxi piping and the oyster, unopened. Here is the twill. I think the twill is the stuff that you can dye. But then again, I might not know what I'm talking about. Here are some more buttons and more twill. More of the seam binding. Here is a little doily, a cloth doily. And then we have another, I think there was already a vintage handkerchief in there, but now we have two. So this video looks like it's right at 20 minutes. So this is lot 3. I'm going to go ahead and cut it off with just the 3 lots to start out. They are going to be $24, which will include shipping. If you are interested in any of the lots, I will leave my email address below. Just send me a message letting me know which lot you're available or which lot you're interested in.